next topic is on HR for startups. I found it interesting. We did a corporate structure talk at FastSkin 2 days ago, and so many of the questions were actually HR related. So I think you'll get some of and a lot of the people from Thursday are actually here. So I think a lot of those questions should get answered in this session. BackStretch is a sponsor of the competition. We met them because of a past winner in the competition, a company named Certain, which Matt will tell you all about. BackStretch has worked with them for a long time. They are a past winner of the competition, and I think just that's how they learned about us. So it's always, I always found it great that was a great way that we were able to connect. So that's right. So yeah, speaker today, Matt, I never asked how to pronounce your last name. Heiydt, Matt Heiydt from BackStretch Recruitment Group. So he'll take you through some HR essentials, and I think we've got room for questions, and that's about it. So I'm gonna pass it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, is this working?
Yes.
Kinda? Okay, cool. I'm just gonna stand, and everyone in the back can kind of hear. If you can hear me, raise that hand. Anyone? Yeah, okay. Super casual today. I'm gonna try to get the clicker to work. Maybe, hey, look. Okay, so I get where kind of people are at right now. HR is a weird word, so I just want to chat a little bit about what companies need on the size of thing I think you're trying to build today. I also want to say is just ask questions throughout. We're here for a certain amount of time and we'll talk about it. If you're wondering what kind of questions I can help with, here's a little quick background. We were chatting about earlier, I did a commerce degree, I pursued professional golf randomly, moved to BC, got into recruiting, workforce planning, and just helping companies grow on the people side. I've been doing that for 20 years now. Through that experience myself, I've been exposed to over 200 companies on the inside. The big win that we'll talk about, which I think everyone in the room should learn about because they did a good job on it, is the Certain company. BackStretch is the power behind Certain. We did over 220 plus permanent hires for Certain over the past 3 years and helped them design their entire recruiting process from the inside. So that helped them solve hiring. And that's one thing you can all learn about today from me for sure. The team I'm in my company has a whole bunch of experience doing this kind of stuff. Okay, so I watched a previous presentation. I was like, okay, what do I think the room really needs? So I kind of asked around inside of my company, and I asked some people that I know that have successful startups, and I said, the word HR is kind of a weird word, so let's just break that down. And I said, so I did a customer survey, basically, and I asked people, what are the biggest things around HR that you think startups should know or wish someone told you when you were starting, right? Because everyone's telling you all this random stuff, but the point is we're trying to declutter the info you get, and that's what I'm trying to do today. So it's funny, the stuff that found and came out was, number one, people were like, hey, there's some stuff you need to do to get started on the HR front. Okay, we'll chat about that. I don't think it's that important, and we'll talk about it. Next is that the common theme that, it's funny because people inside of my company highlighted this more than external, was you have to realize you're building something like sort of a culture today. The word culture I don't like, but we'll talk about it. It's a common word, so we'll use it. I don't like it, but anyways, you're building that already. So I want to tap into that today because that's going to start manifesting itself into a whole bunch of different stuff. The third thing is that really came up is that internal and external is you just have to realize that you're not hiring now. However, you kind of are. So the idea of getting and learning about hiring and what ramping up it kind of starts in the room with you today. And the ones that do well kind of embrace this challenge early and kind of think about it, and we'll talk about what that means. And the fourth biggest one, which is my personal one, is you are not reinventing any wheel in the room today. Your business is unique, however, the processes and systems are not. So don't reinvent a wheel. Learn who's done an awesome job, follow them, tweak it, and do not do the things of the ones who have failed. So there's just tons of people who have failed before. There's tons of people who have done well. And our job today is to talk a little bit about that from an HR side. Anybody, raise your hands if anyone actually uses ChatGPT in the room. Isn't it crazy? So I'm 43, okay? So when I heard this come out, I was like, I don't know. And then I have a younger guy in my company who's definitely tech savvy. He heads up all of our technology recruiting. So he's the one who does all the software roles, does all the UI roles. And he's like, no, dude, you got to check this out. So I have been playing around with it for the last week because he kind of showed me prompts and things like this. And I just thought it was interesting. I was like, okay, what the heck does ChatGPT have to say? So I just typed in, what are the HR challenges for startups? And it's funny, this is what they came up with. I'll be brief here. Number one for them was attracting and retaining talent. Number two is building a culture. Number three is how to manage growth. You're not there yet, that's cool. Adapting, number four is adapting to a remote work environment. We're not talking about it today. If you have questions, I got a whole bunch on that. And then the fifth one is compliance with employment laws. So kind of similar, kind of cool. The agenda that I actually have for you today is a little bit different. So again, the first one, I just want to pass along some simple stuff that you need to get going right today. Just do it, get it over with. Number two is the one we're chatting about is, okay, what the heck is going on with this whole annoying buzzwords of culture? But it actually is good stuff there, so I'll talk to you about it. Third is this idea of just giving you some input and attracting and securing talent. And then the fourth is, again, we're not reinventing the wheel. I'm actually going to show you some examples that Certain did that I watched from the inside and some other tech companies we worked with. Because actually, you don't know this about BackStretch, but all we do is help companies in growth solve hiring. That's what we do for a living. Okay. You're probably getting berated by people saying, you got to get in your CRA, you got to do payroll, you got to get processing, you got to get WorkSafe BC, all this stuff. Has anyone even told about all this stuff? No? Okay, so here's all this stuff. You can probably get the presentation after. It's all simple. There's toll-free numbers for all this stuff, okay? There's a CRA, payroll numbers through there, payroll processing, super easy. All this stuff is not rocket science. Don't freak out, okay? Like, you can do a whole presentation on this stuff. It doesn't really matter. WorkSafe BC, you actually unfortunately need that. It's kind of weird. My company, I have to pay WorkSafe BC for everyone in the company, even though everyone works remotely. I don't understand it, but it's a government thing. Next thing is BC Health Tax. It used to be MSP. It's super easy. Here's my answer to you. Don't even deal with it. It's just a waste of your time. Focus on your business. Focus on your growth. Do your thing. Find a payroll provider. They're all the same. Some of them are a little different. They charge you all a bit different. Their business models are all similar. Get an accountant. My life became super easy when I just brought on an accountant when I was first starting the company 12 years ago. They were working about 10 hours a week, 10 hours a month. She knew everything, and she's still with me. And my life is like 50% better because anything to do with that area, she's just like, oh yeah, this is how you do that. And I'm like, okay, great. So all this stuff around the CRA and all that, I just want you to know, it can feel like it can suck your time up, but I just want you to know it doesn't have to at all. People make whole companies on this stuff. Just use them, enjoy it. But we're going to talk about partners a little bit later. And here's the thing that's cool about having partners that provide this stuff. Guess what you do if you don't like them? Any guesses? You fire them, right? So it's not like you're bringing on a contractor. It's not like you're bringing on an employee. Trust your gut. There's all these people going to be fighting for your business, and maybe you feel this. One of my biggest griefs about companies and startups is that you get approached by vultures all the time. Anyone feel this? Where you just have all these people, the more you grow, the more there's these people trying to get your business. It's kind of cool. It kind of feels good, but it's also trust your gut when any partners you work with. And if you don't like them, fire them quickly and then find another one because there's hundreds of people offering these services. Does anyone have any questions on payroll providers or accountants before we skip it? Anything? Yeah, they're very straightforward, and I'm glad there are none. So we're going to actually get into more important stuff now, which I think is important for companies that are in your stage. And again, please just stop or raise a hand if you have anything you want to talk about this. You got to remember, I've spent the last 20 years just watching startup companies from the inside growing, seen a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so again, I don't like this word because probably just because we overuse it in my world, but you know, it's important. And I guess one thing I wanted to pass along today is you may not know it, but you're already building it. So that's going to start manifesting itself. The people you talk to, they're going to get a feel for what you're building and why. The people you talk to that you may one day want to hire in a year, they're picking stuff up from you. What you're posting on your website or your world or anything you're doing on social, it's all building something. You may not even be thinking about it right now, but it's building something. And in many ways, that is right now your culture. It could be a one-person shop. That's cool. But the people on the outside are seeing that, and they're getting vibes from that. And I do want to say, I don't know if everyone has people in your organization yet or you have a partner, is I think this is a worthy conversation to sit down and just see if there's some consistency of what you're sharing, see if you're on the same page, and there's this concept of why. So if you haven't done it, sit down, you probably have in some stages, but sit down with yourself, your partner, or your mentor, or whatever, and just really clarify why, because it's the why that people are curious about, and it's the why that starts defining cultures from what I've seen from startups. Has anyone heard of a concept called end celebratory moment? Anyone? Okay, I'll tell you about this, because this is an interesting concept that kind of connects to culture, which kind of connects the whole thing. Steve Jobs, he had a mentor, and they worked really hard to define for him what his end celebratory moment is. End celebratory moment is when on the day you're dying, on your deathbed, what are you proud of that you accomplished through both personal and business? So they're talking about the business side. Any idea what Steve Jobs said after years of trying to figure out what his end celebratory moment would have been? His end celebratory moment, which took forever to figure out, but what it actually was, he wanted to get a computer in everybody's hands. That's his culture that he was building. That's what he worked on with his mentor, and that's what he took him a long time to figure out, but that's what he wanted to do for his life. That was it. So that's his why. Same thing in the room. What's your why? Communicate your why. Share your why. People will align with your why. A lot of people felt Steve Jobs was, all these words, brilliant, smart, intelligent. But one of the big things you pick up is he had an amazing ability to make the right decision quickly. But it wasn't that he had a great ability to make a decision. It's the fact that he knew his why, because he took a long time in his life to figure it out. And his why is, I want to get a computer in everybody's hands. So anytime a decision came through in the millions that were being asked every day, he just had one simple answer. Does it get a computer in everyone's hand? If the answer is yes, you go do that. And if the answer is no, you're done, you're out. So same thing for you. Culture is your why. Share your why. People want to know. People want to know if they want to build with you on it. I know people are just kind of starting out, but a couple stats which are kind of interesting is 80% of millennial job seekers judge culture fit before accepting a position. So actually it is important. Your first hire or hires, this is big, especially when you hire younger people. 89% of passive job seekers evaluate your brand before replying to any message. And I know this, and my team knows this because we deal with this all the time. One of our first questions, especially with younger demographics, is just like, tell me about the company. What's going on there? Hey, I saw this on Glassdoor. They just got a 1.2 on Glassdoor. What's going on? And that's what we deal with. And that's what people are going to do with you. So has anyone actually looked at Glassdoor on themselves yet, if there is anything? Anyone? Check it out. It's important. Oh, you got one? Okay, nice. Yeah. Super important. We'll talk about it later. 32% of morale drop when a bad hire happens, not matching culture. So bad hiring sucks too. And it's all connected to culture. If you understand your why, it'll help you make those decisions. And the end celebratory moment is a common theme that I've developed in my company and as well as in a mentorship group I'm a part of. It makes decisions so easy. It's just like, oh. So one day when you're hiring maybe, if you're clear in your why with your leadership team and yourself, you can say, hey, is this person gonna help us get a computer in everyone's hands? And if the answer is yes, you're probably all gonna feel pretty good. And if the answer is no, it's like, let's move on, this isn't good. Okay, so I chat GPT this again, because when I first said I was making this, the Joffer in my company was like, just don't even do it, just chat GPT the whole thing. I was like, okay, no, I'm not gonna do that. But so this is what they say. I bolded some words here. They're pretty big words. I don't think they're probably the most important in the room right now, but just tap into the why. The culture of why is so important for everyone in the room, and the more you talk about it, the better, of all the startups I've seen. So shared values, beliefs, behaviors. Culture is reflected in how it treats others, how it interacts with others. That little handshake you gave, that little thing you said, that will stick with the person you met. So if you know your why, I mean, for Steve Jobs, someone met him and was like, hey, what's up? He's like, hey. He's like, what do you do? He's like, hey, my job is to get a computer in everyone's hands. Cool. Hey, I can help with that. Cool, let's talk about it. culture stuff, here's my overall thoughts is with yourself, with your whoever you got in your world, the why is a dialogue I'm hoping you can have early and often. I found that companies that we've worked with to help ramp up over the years, if they're really clear on their why, and that can change, but if they're clear together, awesome stuff happens. If there's not a clear why underneath, it gets a little dirty. At minimum, revisit it once a quarter. Put it in the calendar. Just block yourself off for a half hour. Maybe do it with someone on your team. Have the conversation now. And the most important thing that I see with companies that are in this like first stage of life is, man, it's amazing how many companies lie. You know, like even when companies are paying us money to help them hire some of their first people, they're like, yeah, you know, we really want to say that we're like a really fast growing company and quick room to grow. And I'm like, but is that true? Like, why are you saying that? They almost feel like they need to say that because they're not clear on their why. So we have to challenge people in lying a lot at this stage. So it's almost what you're not than what you are, if I could say that. If you're clear on your why, you're cool. If you're not clear on your why, you start saying all this stuff, right? Yeah, fast growth. And the thing is most candidates don't even care about that anymore. Do you know why? Because everything they see all reads the same way. So you're all just one big, terrible pool of crap. And it's just all saying the same things. It's the ones that really understand who they are and it's super genuine for you. For example, there was a cool tech company that was getting involved with, they were involved in the motor industry, cars and stuff. Their why was really clear to me when I first met them. They're like, we just love cars. We love cars. Everyone who works here loves cars. You know, like we will go away on a weekend and go to an auto show and like literally have the best time ever. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. You guys all love cars. That makes sense. So everybody here has that drive, that why. When that's not clear, there's this weird line going on and then it just manifests itself and it's super weird. So I wanted to give you an example of Certain because I know Certain, I don't know, raise your hands if you've heard of this Certain company. Some people? Okay. So New Ventures BC is a previous company. Certain's raised over $90 million. They're based in Victoria, BC. They did Series A at 42, and they just finished their Series B, I think it was at 40 and 50. So doing very well, 400 employees globally, and they actually came through this program. So definitely a company you should go right down and go check out how they did it, because they were in this room. They're just like you. And now they're doing pretty awesome. So I always think it's nice when I'm with New Ventures BC is to kind of share what I've seen there and seen what they did very well. Because again, we're not reinventing a wheel here, guys. So just don't feel you have to reinvent something and figure it out. One of the things that was so hilariously funny at the beginning is the president and CEO, who I knew very well. For him, one of his biggest things was he was like, no assholes. No assholes. And that was just cool. I was like, oh, because you know what's funny? It doesn't mean much, but it kind of means everything. So his why, you know, this has nothing to do with what the company does. Like it's not about, oh, we're building the blah 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 and the thing. He's like, yeah, our culture, we got no assholes. And then so what happens is the people that have worked in the past in cultures that had negativity, pessimism, just people they didn't want to be around with who accepted assholes, they knew at Certain that's not happening here. And that really made the culture awesome at the beginning because everyone in the room knew, no assholes. And it's kind of interesting. They actually even made hoodies that said no assholes, written that way, and they went to career fairs and they're all walking around with these shirts. Everyone's just like, these guys are awesome. You know, people are trying to hand out like keychains, like we're the greatest AI company, and these guys are just walking around with no assholes, and it's funny, right? Because everyone's like, these guys are awesome. So you can imagine the culture they were. I don't know if it was what I'm trying to say here is I don't think it was a conscious effort to build a culture. I'm just saying it was genuine to them, it was real, and it did a lot of good stuff. So think about for yourself in the room, right? What is genuine to you or the people you're starting, and are you clear on it? Are you proud about it? Are you aware of why you're doing it? Are you telling others why you're doing it? So 3 years later, After 200 hires, of course, things get a little bit tighter. But you can see that the remnants of the no assholes thing allowed them to go there. And so I'll just read it quickly. This is what they created as a team after a whole bunch of hires and a whole bunch of senior people. And as certain, we have core values, we're accountable, we're inclusive, we're synergistic, and importantly, we're not assholes. The last part might sound a little controversial, but is there for a reason. We do not accept belittling coworkers, mocking someone seeking help, refusing to assist others, spreading gossip, undermining, taking credit for work they didn't do, and blaming others for their mistakes. Pretty cool. It started at the very beginning, it manifested, it grew. And again, why I like this, it has nothing to do with what the company does. It allows people to select and deselect themselves by seeing what the company's like. And the best part is it's super genuine. You read this and you're like, okay, they thought about this. This is what they're building over here. So most people, when we help them hire their first 100, and again, I think we finished at 263 hires, is kind of where BackStretch did at the end of it all. This was number one for almost everyone we talked to. It was not about their product. It was not about their service. It was about, man, this looks like a great company to join. I would love to go work with these people. And they kept on saying these people, them, the individuals, because the software developer working at this company is a software developer who works over there. Their motivation for the product and service can be high, but more importantly, the motivation of the people they're working with is way higher. Hence, culture. Culture, 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 culture. That's where that word all comes from. If that car company hired somebody that just didn't give a shit about cars, it's probably not going to go very well, right? Hey, we're going to Detroit this weekend. Right on, let's go. Oh, yeah, I don't really like cars. It's like, oh, terrible mistake. So in your business, what is it? What is that thing that will make people want to work hard with you? Late nights, projects, getting investors, going to Detroit and going to check out the new prototype cars, but also meeting some top people at Chevrolet and being like, hey, let's go high five each other, let's go. It gets picked up. Anyone know what time it is? Okay, all right. Okay, last thing on culture is, I just want everyone in the room, just stop pretending of something you're not. It's the worst. Everyone sees through it, it's a waste of time. Tap into what brings your partners together. We talked about that. Make it something that people can select themselves in or out. Like, hey, if you're not a car enthusiast, you probably don't want to be here. That's way better than saying, hey, we got pub Friday nights. Why don't you come drink from our beer? That's just not a real, genuine moment. And the last thing I want to say, which may sound counterintuitive, but of all of the companies I've seen do well, and that's all we do is work with companies in growth and startup modes. Don't hire an HR person until you have to. 100%. This is, if you write anything today, write it down. Do not hire an HR person until you have to. And I'm talking it's probably going to be around 30 to 40 people, maybe 50, until you really have to hire a full HR person. They start shaping the culture for you, and it's an interesting time when that happens. So if you are hiring HR early, and I would not recommend to do so, just make sure they're so aligned on your why that they literally bleed it, and it's real. If it's not, don't ever do it. Because this person is going to start being your culture filter. Anyone who comes into your organization, they control that, and I've seen that hire of HR person go wrong way more times than I've seen it go well. Okay, this attracting and securing talent. I try to keep it brief because we do this for a living, so I'm just trying to keep it simple. I think there's 3 things I think that are kind of maybe on your radar. If they're not, ask other stuff, because we do this for a living. Number 1 is options. Should you go contract or perm? We'll talk about it. Number 3, I just want everyone to be aware of the time involved. This is not tough, it's long, and it takes forever. Number 3 is how important the experience is for both the candidates as well as the everyone involved. It just connects to culture, I'll tell you why. Okay. Yeah, I think it's off. I mean, it's not a big deal. Oh, it's for the okay, it's working. Okay, so I'll just swing this down. Okay, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to skip through this quickly. If this is important for anyone in the room, just raise your hand, and if it's not, that's fine. At BackStretch, we do and help companies bring on their contracting teams as well as their permanent teams. So we're on both sides of this equation. So we're not, privy or focusing your growth in one path or the other. We've just seen what's good and bad on both. So it's good you know this now. If you're bringing on a contractor, the pros are you get flexibility, meaning that you can get stuff done quickly. You can bring them on, you can take them off. You have start, you got end times. It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months. It's all good. Cost savings is huge in contractors. Usually about 30 to 70% of a full-time team member. That's including all the time and energy spent, all the benefits, all the health spending accounts. There's just a whole bunch of stuff involved. Contractors is cheaper. Reduce risk of legal and regulatory issues, for sure. Actually, one of the reasons why large companies use contractors is simply just for this part. They do not have any legal responsibility to them. If a company is paying a contractor or they're getting a contractor through BackStretch, they're actually employed by BackStretch. They are not employed by you in the room. So that's beautiful. From any legal systems, we do all the payroll stuff. We do all the background work. We do all the payrolling services. We cover all the MSPs and all the health and all the stuff. You don't even have to worry about it. All you got to know is what's the deal with your contractor, when do you want them to start, when do you want, and we do the whole thing, and then we payroll them. So you're off the hook for everything. And that's actually why large companies do this. If you look at like a TELUS or a Bell, about 10% of their workforce is contractors specifically for this reason. They just don't want to deal with it. They'll pay people to find them, to payroll them, and contract them. So you bring them in, they finish their job. And these contracts are pretty long. They're usually between 6 months to a year for the larger companies. Well, why does contracting suck? You definitely have a lack of control. This person could literally just not work and call tomorrow and say, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. It does happen because your commitment to them is low, hence their commitment back is low. It's kind of like dating. Cons, limited investments. What I mean by that is it's difficult to gain that commitment from that person as you would a full-time team member, as you could probably imagine. And the next is accountability. Some contractors have multiple contracts on the go. So they may have the skill set you want. I will say from personal experience as well, to hold them accountable to timelines is challenging. And to actually get them to achieve things on timelines is super tough. So you got to be aware of that from the beginning. That's a big one. Okay, so on the perm side, it's kind of the opposite. Commitment, yeah, it goes both ways, right? You're saying, hey, you're with me. I'm investing into you. Let's figure this out. Quality is typically of a higher level, specifically because of the commitment level. And the cool thing about having a team for real, it's like having a team in anything in life, is that you get to collaborate and you get to challenge each other and you get to win. Contractors are great for point A to point B. Permanent team members are great to actually have a team and solve difficult challenges and grow with. The cons are, again, it's quite costly. We talked about the differences. Discipline's tough. So when they're permanent, there is things and processes. That's life. And if it's not working out, the idea of ending agreements in a permanent structure is always challenging for people, right? There's just stuff around that. I don't want to talk about it too much, but you probably know that already because you're smart people. Okay, the second thing was I just wanted everyone to really grasp what time is in recruiting. Some people are like, oh, we'll just hire. And nope, not happening. Recruiting and hiring is typically the biggest challenge for companies in growth. Full stop. That is what's going on. Once you get your money, everyone in this room is going to have this oh shit moment, which I talk about. And it's just like, oh, we're now at that next stage. What does that look like? So I just want to give some numbers here about what that happened and what that looked like. So again, going back to the Certain example, because they came to new ventures. So BackStretch and Certain together, through this hiring of 194 people in 19 months when we were our busiest with them, there was, I time logged the whole thing for everyone so you know what's really happening. There was 607 hours dedicated just to recruiting across all people. It's crazy. We conducted 776 first interviews and 465 second interviews. We, at BackStretch, we don't just use marketing. We go out and reach out to people in the market. We headhunted or reached out to directly with private messaging over 3,000 people. Only about 3% of the people will actually apply using the market. So it's tough. And 70% that the people we found were actually not found through actual marketing that we posted from us reaching out to people. So everyone in this room today, if you're going to start thinking about hiring, don't just post and hope. You're going to have an idea of reaching out to people and building conversations. That's why I'm saying in the room, you should start thinking about it today, because it is a thing. The impact, which I want you to be aware of, is a bad hire. Everyone has different levels. This company says it's around 15K. It's bad. Team members' morale drops. We could probably imagine. Bad hires result in a low drop in productivity. So we're not beating this to death. I know not everyone in the room is going to be thinking about hiring right now. I'm just thinking about I want everyone to know time. It's a huge suck of time. If you do it bad, this is what happens. The other thing I want to be aware of is in hiring, it's amazing you can work so hard and build the stuff we talked about from an HR perspective on culture, right? Your why. But it's amazing how quickly you can rip it apart when you start hiring. And this is my biggest thing I've seen with companies that are starting to hire, and hopefully sinks home today for everyone in the room. You can spend 2 to 3 years of your life building something, and then you can throw it all away the moment you post on that job or that ad, because people start doing stuff. If you don't get back to that candidate because they reach out to you and you're busy, guess where they go? Any guesses? Competition, yeah, maybe. But where they really go is Glassdoor. And then you're in trouble. Because the average candidate spends 41 minutes of research before they apply to a position or respond to a headhunt. So I want everyone to think about this. They're not just seeing something and going to post. The people that are great in this world, they know wherever they apply, they will get that interview based on their backgrounds and skills. Or if it's a headhunt, or if it's a network introduction, they will still do 41 minutes of research on you in the room. So imagine working your butt off, 3 years, not sleeping, highly caffeinated. Then you go out there and you write a really poor job that has grammatical errors. The whole world sees it, and then one candidate you interviewed who may or may not be a good person, because Glassdoor is a confidential thing. No, the person doesn't even necessarily have had to ever know you or work with you. That's just Glassdoor. That's how they roll. You can rip that apart with Glassdoor, and because the issue is that if anyone searches your company, because Glassdoor is actually the #3 job board in Canada, so it's actually super important. It goes LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor. They will look at Glassdoor on you. It's going to happen every single time. That's how it works. So I just want everyone to be really aware, if you are going to take a jump into this space, it's just got to be one that really is defining your why, written well, and just making the best possible impression. One of the things that actually is great on the flip side is if you do an amazing job in all of this stuff, your stock goes up. Imagine getting amazing reviews on Glassdoor. Hey, this is one of the best interview processes I've ever seen. Has anyone actually been on Glassdoor recently? Just raise your hands. Okay, I see some hands. Check it out. It'll blow your mind. Glassdoor has tabs on everything now. So confidentially, they can talk about what interview questions did you actually ask them, what salary ranges people are making in the company, what the approval level is of the president or the CEO. Everything, they're adding more and more and more tabs, so people can really get an inside look on you building your company on Glassdoor. And that's where everyone's landing. So someone said competition. Yeah, they can go to your competition. I don't think that's going to hurt your brand. I don't think that's going to hurt your culture too much. I think that when they start knowing that there's these tools, we got problems. How are we on time? Okay, so I know you're just getting going here, right on, but I just want everyone to be aware is every little thing people do, that little conversation you had today, the people in the room today, everyone's going to do a little digging. The digging is what makes up your why, or what makes up your quote-unquote culture. And I get on it today. Don't get on it tomorrow. Like, go home after this, have a coffee, and just do this, please. Go check out your LinkedIn. Make it like in the top 2% of any company profile on LinkedIn today. It's the first place companies go when people Google your name, your company name. The first thing that's going to pop up is LinkedIn. Everyone's going to go checking it out. Go do an awesome job there. On the flip side, in recruiting, it's funny because a lot of people are posting things, I haven't had a job or blah, blah, blah on LinkedIn. And the biggest feedback from industry professionals is saying, you have nothing on your LinkedIn. You need to make your LinkedIn. Because the thing is, if you open up our company, As you saw previously, about 70% of our candidates we find are actually through reach out campaigns, not through marketing applications. Guess how we find you? Keyword searching, LinkedIn profile, #1 all day. We're on LinkedIn all day, every day. I'm dropping about $20,000 a month on LinkedIn right now for my team. It's #1 in the world. So why are you not in the top 2% on LinkedIn as a company profile? For real. Like, what are you doing here? Why are you trying to raise money if you have a bad LinkedIn profile? It's ridiculous. #2 is you have to go to Glassdoor, because I've been sharing what's going on. It is going to show up in a Google search for probably the top 3. It's a #3 job board in Canada. However, it is one of the most SEO-focused companies out there. So go on your Glassdoor. You can write your own company profile. You can see if anyone's written everything. Hopefully they haven't. If someone's written something weird, what do you think we should be doing? Leaving it? There's some options. You can report them, or you can actually respond nicely. My only advice is just don't get in a fight with them, because I've seen it happen. And actually, Glassdoor is really funny and cool in a weird way. Like, you can go on there, and there's some companies that have like 5 reviews in a row of 5s, and then someone comes through and it's like, "Don't work here. The CEO wrote these. This is all lies." And then they go, "No, I actually do work here." And you see this back and forth and bickering on the site. And obviously, this company is in a lot of trouble, and no one's going to ever work with them again. So this is big. The third thing is obviously website, but I actually put it in this order because I believe, if it was me and I was looking to invest some money, that's the order I would do. I'm going to the website last. We know that that's not going to be driving traffic. LinkedIn's driving traffic for sure. Your activity on LinkedIn, very impressive. Okay, right on. You're sharing awesome stuff. You're building some stuff. Glassdoor, I would definitely be checking you out, being like, hey, is there any negative or weird stuff on this company? Because that's a big issue. Because you can't just get rid of it on Glassdoor. It's just there. And then, yeah, the website is not that important to me. Okay, so this is the last section. It's about if there is something today, there's maybe some gems in this, but I want one of the big ones to be is when I was building my company, I kept on trying to reinvent a wheel for some weird reason, trying to do it a little bit differently. And then someone came along and says, "Why are you doing all this? Why are you putting so much time on this?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he just said, "Don't reinvent the wheel. Someone else has done this already. Go check that out." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a really good point." So I'm hoping to get that in the room today. Don't pretend to yourself that you're doing something that is so unique that it hasn't been done by amazing people in the past, and tap into those amazing people, and also realize why people have really failed in it. So again, there's a theme of here. I'm bringing up this certain example through the New Ventures connection. I get some people don't know who they are, but just to clarify, they won the BC's fastest growth company. Their revenues went from 56K to 18.5 million. 33,000 growth, over 400 employees globally, and they were sitting in the room. So that's pretty cool. One of the things we want to learn when we see that kind of stuff is, okay, well, what the heck? What did they do? And I can share from an HR perspective what I saw well on the inside, which I'm hoping to get to you. The first thing I want to really challenge everyone in the room is build trust with partners early and often. What do I mean by that? I'll go into the other ones later. Okay, this is not just about HR, although the presentation is on HR. My real question would be is, who are your partners? Who are the people that you trust, that you're working with, that understand your why, and are building with you? This is what's going to define success, I believe. And you can go disappear in your own rabbit hole to try to invent your own wheel. And I'm trying to say in the room is, don't. That's why earlier I'm like, just hire an accountant, hire a payroll processor. That's what they do. Just wrap it up. It's kind of similar for you on the flip side here, is who are your partners? Meaning, who are the people that you actually have met, have services that you know in your business you're going to need, and that you can call upon, ask questions with, throw ideas to them, and be like, hey, we're thinking about this. What have you seen? Or this isn't working over here. What do you think? I believe we're a great partner when any company is talking about recruiting and ramping up. That's all we do for a living. We've done it. We know what's going on. So it's a question of, hey, we're thinking about hiring this first. And we'd be like, oof, probably not. Here's why. Here's what we've seen. It's like, oh, okay, cool. This idea of thinking you can do it on your own it's a fallacy. You cannot do it on your own. So you're going to have team members around you, but more importantly, your partners are the ones who have the industry experience. They're like mentors that you're paying for, kind of, right? What are they bringing? What do they got? And again, just on the hiring front, again, remember, it took 607 hours to pull that off with that one company. Do you want to be doing those? Do you want other people to be doing them? What is an hour worth for you? And the last thing I just wanted to highlight, which I was talking about earlier, is the coolest thing about people you work with as partners. If they're not good, you just wrap them up. And it gives you power in the relationship, which is actually very difficult to get at your stage because you're always trying to pursue people. Hey, money, investment, come work with us. When you choose partners and you find and you're paying them, you now have a relationship where you can say, hey, this isn't working, this isn't working. If this doesn't get done in the next week, we got to wrap it up. We got to find someone else who does. Certain was working with somewhere between 5 to 7 different quote unquote recruiting companies as well as their own HR before we partnered and took over all the hiring for them. It wasn't working, and now it was. They found the right partner. So the question is not just HR, but for all the services you need in your company, have you reached out to people? Have you had discovery calls with people that can provide those services? Trust your gut. If you really connect with somebody awesome, and maybe they love cars as well, it's like, oh, sweet, I want to work with this guy. Hey, what car do you drive, you know? One of the things I also wanted to highlight that I've seen for companies from an HR perspective culture is it always has to start from the top, meaning that you are the initiator of change for partners. So if it's anything to do with HR and you're growing and you're trying to implement new HR policies, if you don't live and breathe it, don't do it. I've seen the opposite happen with companies and startups where the person at the top has some challenges or something that is manifesting itself in the organization, and it's just bad news. Everyone picks up on it, no one wants to be around it. It's probably the opposite of the no assholes rule, right? It's like asshole. It's like, oh, I don't want to work there. The buy-in from the top does dictate everything. And if the person at the top has gone through it and made the right decision and they know it's the right decision, everybody underneath gets it and aligns. If it's the opposite, it's just bad. And I know everyone in the room doesn't have like a huge place right now, but just think about that, right? When you're talking to your partners, your investors, are you clear on your why? And is that really manifesting itself through your conversations, or are you still not too sure? If you're not too sure, it gets picked up on. The people you bring on will pick up on it. It's kind of a thing. And then we're going back to the why, because that's kind of what I was hoping to get out of this conversation. The why, just like what I wrote, is end celebratory moment. Steve Jobs knew he wanted to get a computer in everyone's hands. That made his decisions easy, and the people he hired and partnered with was easy. Does everyone here in the room know their why? Do they know their end celebratory moment, and can they work on that? It does a lot of great things. It provides culture clarity, the no asshole thing. It ensures the best ideas win versus egos, and it also ensures that you're choosing the right partners. Because the partners you choose, if it gets a computer in everyone's hand or whatever it is for your business, you're doing well. If it doesn't, you're gonna have a partner that you're paying money to, and you're gonna feel a little bit stuck. Okay, that's it. So we have a whole bunch of stuff here, and does anyone have any questions around anything to do with this stuff? And I know there's some stuff that wasn't hit. What's going on?
Steve, global.
Okay.
Employment contracts that have a limited length, are they advantageous because it gives you kind of a chance to sample the quality of work?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so we get this, like this, people ask us all day. Okay, so there's a few things on this. How would you feel to join a company that put a limited length on you?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How about I just, do you want to do the mic? Yeah.
So the original question was, how do employment contracts work in favor of the company? And then you are asking me now.
That's right.
How would I feel if I had a limited contract with a company?
That's right.
So I'm the CEO.
Yeah.
And I've told that individual, I don't have the amount of money to pay you
That's right.
if I go beyond the length of this contract. And until I get that money, I don't want to leave you hanging.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's the answer.
Yes, understood. So we went previously on the pros and cons of contracting versus permanent. Here's the thing. Many people, especially in technology, prefer contract. The reason why is because they themselves can make about 20 to 30% more money for themselves and their family than they would going permanent. So I'll give you an example. Before I started BackStretch, I was managing recruiting for a tech company in BC, and they had a leader there who they kept on trying to go permanent with them. And that person said, no, you still pay me as a contractor. I said, no, we want you permanently. Nope, contractor. And they're saying, we might have legal issues. And they still said, no, contractor, or else I'm gone. So it's the opposite of what you're saying, in a way, where it depends on the motivation of the individual, right? So if you know in your heart and your organization, you only have a certain bandwidth, awesome. Be genuine from the beginning and say, hey, here's what the contract is, here's how it's structured. My only suggestion is just hire more senior. This is why. You're paying a little bit more per hour, but these people that are in contracting space, they are typically incorporated, which means they've already committed to the contractor life, and they only want a contract. And we have a contracting part of our business, which we do 6 months and 1 year contracts. And everyone says, well, why don't they do perm? Like, why? And there's an answer. They have dedicated themselves to lives of contracting. And again, mostly because of the financial thing. They know that they're with you for 6 months, they can make 30% more, they can bring home more to their family, they've already incorporated themselves, they've already agreed, and in recruiting we call it the emotional contract, not the job. So the emotional contract here is, hey, we got 6 months here, let's go. And they said, hey, I'm going with you. Here's how it works, I'm incorporated, contracting is done, do the payrolling through our company, you're all good. Now you know from day one you guys are aligned, right? And that's why the idea of trying to hire permanently and trying to force a permanent mindset into a contract usually will fail, because their commitment to you is very little. So you're being honest and genuine. But however, if they set up a push notification on LinkedIn, by the way, which is a thing, so you can actually go on LinkedIn and say, hey, send me 10 jobs a day with these job titles. So while they're working for you, they're getting pushed 10 jobs a day, and they've now made it a one-button apply. So they can, within 3 minutes, get 10 jobs for them. They can go apply, probably get 4 interviews. Next week you said, well, what's going on? You said you're with me. Yeah, found something permanent. So the contractors are amazing. They are a hired gun. They believe that this is what they do. It's really common in the visual effects industry. Is anyone in film at all around here? Okay, yeah, visual effects industry it's all contractors. They come in hot. They come in for 6 months, they work 20 hours a day, they get free dinner, they're done. They go away for 6 months, they go travel with their family. There's a whole world out there. But the thing is they've accepted the emotional agreement at the beginning. Hey, you're coming in, you're working 20 hours, we're buying you lunch, let's go. And they're like, right on, high five, let's go. They're a contractor, they're making 30% more, they're happy, you're happy, you get the project done, everyone goes party, and you can go take off for 6 months. Did you have another question?
No.
Okay.
I'm hiring a contractor and a.
Nice.
I'm trying to work that balance.
Yeah, that's right. And as long as it's genuine and you've understood why they've organized their life the way they have, things are good. And that's those questions you ask. Hey, do you prefer perm or contract? Just ask. And they'll be like, oh, I think I'm perm. You're like, ooh. If someone's trying to sell you they want contract, but they really want perm, that's not going to go well. They literally can get 30 jobs in a week. It's how all the tech is set up. It's so easy, it's crazy. Yeah.
What's your assessment on hiring employee based on incentives like commission based? Is
Oh,
it
yeah.
a kind of contract?
Great question. So I was going to do something on this, but I stayed away because I didn't know where everyone's at. There's a whole stuff. I mean, I've probably in my life seen 5,000 employment agreements, all with different styles and writings and commission structures, non-commissions. I think it's kind of an offline chat. We can chat after. It depends on if you're aligning where you are as a company and what's real with what that person wants. That's all it is, just to make it as simple as possible. Are you having real, genuine chats, what's important for them? Do you understand what they want and need? And are you building an agreement to your best ability to do that? So don't look at it from your perspective, right? Look at it from theirs. Talk to them. Have real conversations. Hey, do you have a family? Do you have children? What's important for you? If you do that, the agreement you create connects what we call an emotional contract. So now you're on the same wave, which is what we do in recruiting for a living, right? So our job is to get that connected. So you can say, hey, I only want to pay somebody in commission. Well, maybe you can find them. However, in your first chat, are you actually saying, tell me about what's going on for you? Why are you considering this? Oh, I can't find a job. Probably not good, right? Hey, I got a bankroll for 3 years. I want to go straight commission because you need to show me I can make 2 to 3 times as much taking a normal job. Can you do that? Well, I can't do that. It's a pretty in-depth. This is why recruiting and Glassdoor is so important for you, because if it's, again, you can spend 3 years building something, and then you have one of these conversations, that person doesn't like you, goes on Glassdoor and says, don't interview at this company, this is what happened to me. That's why it's so tricky, right? So, and then the summary to your question is, understand what's important for them, build to your best ability that in the agreement, things are good. If you don't tap into them and learn about them first, things are bad. And as a growing company, there's a lot of people who take 30% less to join you. For sure. It just needs to make sense for them.
I just want to touch a little bit about that question. So yeah, so for the contractors, say as a startup, like you don't have a lot of money to hire like 100 salesperson, right? But you contract them, but they do have a full-time job, and then you sign the agreement with them and then give them incentives. But how would you say, like, how efficient is this? Like, okay, I have
It
100.
isn't.
It isn't.
And you already answered your own question, because you started with something positive and then you went negative, if you listen, right? And you know why, because it's negative. Because you know it's not going to work, right? So trust your gut. Everyone in this room is super smart. I know, because you've already got here and I know what you're up to. You know that's not good, right? So it's tough because you're trying to figure out your business problems, but you're trying to say, well, if I give you an incentive, here's the thing. Anyone who's good in sales can make 150K base, no problem. So you're like, oh, I can get you to blah, blah, blah. And they're like, so what you're doing is you're creating an agreement that's going to get you the bottom 10% of the market. And that's not where you want to play. So there's really cool ways to structure things. We can chat about it offline to make it genuine and real and exciting for people and capturing the right person in the market for you. And it's not easy to do. However, it's real and genuine on your company, and it's talked about what you're building. There's cool ways to structure stuff. It's just got to be a little bit, sophisticated and working on the emotional contract right now versus we think we've solved it. And then it also goes back to the first question, don't reinvent the wheel. Right? Find out what companies at your stage have done that actually has worked and just copy it. Because you're not going to, 6 months of failure is not good for you, for your psyche.
Okay, and then my real question is, so as a startup, we hire our first full-time employee, and then like they have to be the person that wears all hats, right? They
Yeah.
gotta be the marketer, they gotta be fulfill the orders, and then all of a sudden one day they're like, okay, here, like I do have a living, like I want to raise because I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then how would you respond it? Like if you think they're the good right fit employee you want to keep, but you don't want to like raise up too much, and then but you have all these decks on the table for them to making more money by commissions, and but they just don't see them directly in front of them. Like how would you respond to like a raise?
Yeah, so there was something missing there, which is the difficult conversation probably should have happened before they started. And by the way, everyone in this room is going to do the same thing. Your business is going to grow. You're going to randomly hire some person because you know them or someone met someone and you met them, you hire them and then you're stuck with them. And then about 4 months in, you're going to be like, oh my God, this was terrible. And that's how you learn. You all learn by making mistakes. And that's typically why people come to us, is because they've made all these mistakes. They've tried using a quote unquote agency. They've tried HR and they're like, this is all broken and it's really, really, really terrible. So you're not alone. It's going to happen. You're going to hire that person that you met at one time because you just got your first big order and you're like, yeah, that person was pretty cool. Let me call them. You've taken a shortcut in your hiring. Don't do it. Now, back to your question, right? I compare this situation, which we hear all the time, to like dating somebody and then getting engaged and you're about to get married and then you look at them in the eye and be like, oh, by the way, do you want kids? It's like, you probably should have had that conversation earlier, right? But a lot of people don't, weirdly enough. So you need to get comfortable in yourself by asking the tough questions that you know are going to come up in your business during the process and allowing them to select or deselect themselves early. That's why Certain was great on the no asshole comment. Why? Because if a guy knows he's an asshole, is he going to apply? No chance. If a guy knows he's one of those guys who says, yeah, but I'm really good at my job, but he knows he's an asshole, he's staying away from certain. So they're deselecting themselves, right? So these conversations, maybe you don't know and they're catching you off guard, but I would say is there's great things you can ask during the interview process to bring that out. For example, if you know your business, you can say, hey, this is how I want to do this role. We start here. We're going to do a guaranteed increase at 6 months, and then we're going to do a full review in 1 year, and you're going to help build this out for me. Is that fair? Is that something you're interested in? Well, maybe I want to review at 3 months. Oh, you know what? Fair enough. You seem awesome. We'll sit down in 3 months, guaranteed no review, but we'll review financials, and you can get a maximum of 2% increase at that point if things go awesome. What do you think of that? Okay, that's fair. I found this is what we do with candidates and clients a lot. When there's a money difference, we'll say, hey, candidate, if they're willing to sit down with you and review your financials in 6 months, even though we're off here, does that make this more interesting to you? And then the answer is usually like, yeah, like we're off, but like they seem awesome, I want to join them. I just want to make sure it's in the contract. And we always say, for sure, we're going to write it in the contract for you. So we actually put the review stages in a contract in the first year, so the candidate always knows what's happening and the employer is forced to do it, right? So when you're hiring that person, that's what was missing, I figure, is, hey, we sit down in 3 months. This is what we're talking about. This is what my expectations are. We're sitting down in 6 months. This is what's going to happen. And you can actually say, you don't get a guaranteed raise here, by the way, but we are doing a review. I guarantee you a review. So that's kind of where maybe that's an offline thing for you as well, is what are those best questions to ask in the interview process to really get that clear? Walt Disney's famous for this. He developed this thing where they would sell people on the Walt Disney magical life. But when they were growing, at the very beginning, Walt Disney himself would sit down with every person and said, hey, I get you want to work here, but your job is a janitor and you're literally cleaning up people's vomit all day. Do you know that? This is what the job is. Yeah, no, but I love Disney. No, stop. You are literally a vomit cleaner here. It's a very important role, but do you know what this is? Well, like, yeah, no, stop. Do you get it? And the person has to say, I get it. So emotional contract then got connected. They realized after day 2, yeah, no, I'm cleaning up. This is what I do here. Sweet. But if that's not talked about in that process, and then the other thing that's interesting on candidates is that many times we ask questions like this, hey, I can tell you're excited about this. What are you telling your friends and family about this position? And what they say is so different than what the job actually is. It's crazy. Because they've sold themselves on something that they've seen, that they define themselves at, and that's cool. But that's why the emotional contract thing's so big. So when we hear that, we'll actually step in and be like, whoa. Let's organize one more chat with the CEO and president, just so you really understand what's expected, so you're not taking a position that doesn't align. And that's the stuff we're all talking about here, right, is furthering that. There's a dating stage, there's a courting stage, then there's a have kids stage. And you want that person to say, you know, I don't have kids. Oh my God, I think now I know that. We will cancel the wedding, right? Yeah, it gets, yeah. Any other questions?
So we had a discussion on hiring contractors, but
Yes.
I kind of want to elaborate more on hiring international contractors. Like
That's right.
Nowadays, work from home is a new normal. So for like early stage startups, we can have developers and customer support from different countries. So I mean, obviously,
I know
there's
exactly what
some-
you're asking. Yeah. We get this all the time.
Yeah.
It is very, very attractive from a price perspective to go that route. I still have not found a company that solved it. It's tricky. So it kind of taps into the stuff we talked about earlier with contractors, right? The cons are still in existence. A lack of commitment, trying to get people in the same lines, timelines. I don't think that will go away, international or close, because the relationship's skewed. There's companies out there that are selling, hey, we bring in international contractors for you at like $11 an hour. And I think it's very attractive. And in fact, I would want you to pursue it. I just haven't found or heard of a company that's truly solved it. Because I could imagine what it's like when you're trying to run that company. How are you finding your contractors? Like, ask yourself questions from a business perspective, right? Like, how are they finding them? How do they make them committed? How are they finding new people? How do they control when there's a probationary issue with them? So there's a lot of moving pieces. When you add more moving pieces, it gets cheaper. It's just there's more risk. So there's never a good answer. It's just pro and con list. Make it out for yourself. I think if you're thinking about it, try it out. Try to find a vendor of reputable source and just give it a run. It goes back to the partner thing, right? Just fire them. Just try them out. Give them an opportunity. And if they're not executing, wrap it up, try another one, or then try other options like Canadian contractors or the idea of perm, because you'll find they'll all offer different structures.
Besides the cons that you already mentioned for hiring independent contractors, I was wondering, like, how do you decrease the risk of employee misclassification? Because sometimes the contractors that we hire are really employees. We have the control over their behavior, their finances. We pay them monthly rather than on deliverables. So, like, how do you get out of this legal limbo? There's a gray area between employees.
Yeah,
and
like you're
contractors.
wondering, like you don't want to get busted because they're kind of an employee, but you have them as a contractor,
Yeah.
right? Super common question. CRA has a list of 7 questions they ask when they audit you, which you will probably get audited if you're pulling those moves. So know the questions and do your best. The biggest one that I've heard, are they using their own equipment? If the answer is yes, you're doing pretty good. If you gave them a computer, you're done. Over. The other one that's big is, are you giving them specific work that has a start and end date? Right? If the answer is yes, you're doing better. If you gave them a contract that's like a year and they're kind of like acting like an employee, they know that, you're busted. It's tricky.
No, yeah, I agree with that. Like, I was wondering, like, besides knowing those 7 points or like 17 points that are in the US,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
how do you still ensure that, like you want to decrease your cost initially?
The best thing for you is to use a company like ours to actually just do the payrolling because they're an employee of ours. So that's why TELUS has 10% contractors right now. They're like on a 1-year contract. They're working, they're solving an issue. TELUS doesn't want anything to do with them. They don't want to deal with the liabilities, the legal, anything. They just want to know there's a start and end date and they're being paid by a third-party company. And you're paying very little on top of it. It's like you're paying an extra 2% per hour to actually get the payroll in someone else's name.
You'll
So,
be like an employer of record.
pardon?
You'll be like an EOR.
Pardon?
Will you be like acting like an EOR, employer on record?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep, yeah, and they log into our site. We pay them directly. We have a payroll provider we use, and companies love that thing because it's just, I don't have to worry about it anymore. They're here, they have a start date, they have an end date, they're on someone else's payroll. I feel awesome. I can hire 60 of those people and life's good. Because it's stressful, right? Like there's a lot of anxiety of like, when am I gonna get busted? And doesn't feel good.
Just touching on this same situation here. So, do you give them the culture as the intermediate company between the employer and the contractor, or they do get the culture from the main employer?
Yeah, we have nothing to do with culture. And with contractors, I will say this, they just don't care about the culture.
They don't.
No,
How they
they
would
just
fit
don't,
in
well,
the
they don't want
organization.
someone terrible to work with, as none of us do. However, they've already accepted the relationship.
Okay.
I'm a contractor. I'm going to be making 30% more for my family. I'm here to do a job. You know, like Liam Neeson, I've got a particular set of skills, right? I know why I'm here. I'm an assassin.
Is it still healthy for the main employer to have this kind of relationship? Like,
Yeah.
some people that might not fit in the values of the
That's
culture.
the issue. That's one of the cons for contractors. And that is a con. However, if they're working at home on their computer, do you care anyways? Because maybe you just brought them in to fix the UI on this particular thing. It's 3 months, they get it done, you look at it, you say it's awesome, make these changes, you're done, that person's gone. So the relationship is dictated by what you really need as the owner, but the contractors have already accepted the agreement, which is really important.
I mean, when the case is about like project managers, you see that in sprints and tech world every day. Like you have contractors, project managers just jump into the project.
That's right,
Yeah, and they come to solve a big thing.
that's right.
Or they're not a fit into the culture.
Yeah, that sounds scary because
Yeah.
that project manager is no longer a contractor. Anyone who's being influenced and collaborating, you notice the word collaborate earlier? Startup companies talk about that a lot. They love hiring perm because they actually collaborate and challenge each other in their building. Contractors are not there to build or collaborate with you. So my input is, I don't know you well, but do not bring on a contractor to solve complex issues that are important for you and your family. Because what is their commitment level to really see them through and go in the dirt with you on those things? It's easier for them to just get an hourly rate from you and just kind of push it off because you're still paying them anyways. There is this relationship of,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, senior UI guy, contractor, awesome. Bringing him in to actually be a CTO level or a fractional CTO, you got to really go into culture stuff. Like, because there's a lot of people selling fractional CMO, fractional CTO. My personal experience is it's tough because they're awesome, but then they get pulled by different people. They have different responsibilities. You try to hold them accountable. It's challenging. So that's the trade-off, right?
Okay, we're going to wrap it up. I have one online question, which I'm going to attempt to summarize. I'm sorry if I don't get it right, but I think they're asking, what happens as a startup? You come up with an agreement with an employee and you say you're going to be focused on something, X, A, and B, but then it turns out as time passes, you actually don't care about A and B. You want to focus on something else. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, so great question. If anyone heard of this dude, Simon Sinek, he's big on culture and he's big in my world. Hopefully will be big in your world one day. He has this great saying on this. So his company was all event management. He only did events. And guess what happened? COVID, right? So he had to come home one day and tell his family, but also his coworkers, hey, all our events just got canceled. And then he had to sit down with his team, and some people in that room were like, hey, cool, what are we doing? How can we change this? And some people in the room were like, but I'm an event manager, but I manage events. And then Simon said, we are not an event management company anymore. That's over. So it's actually about adaptability in that person. And if you know you need somebody who's going to be adaptable and change quickly because you know that's going to be a problem and you're seeing that's not there, it's best to have that conversation and wrap it up with them because they're not happy, you're not happy, wrap it up, right? If you know you're going to go through 16 changes the next year, you kind of made a mistake early by not asking the right behavioral entry questions and with an emotional contract of this place is going to change all the time. And we all make mistakes. So I think it's best to summarize it, deal with it, face it, allow themselves to opt in or opt out and go with you, but they're probably already showed through their behaviors that they're not ready for that, and it's probably a bad decision.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.